Hi there, I'm Ryan Gatz, and I wanted to share my process for this animation with you. This won't be a super in-depth tutorial, but I hope it'll give you some insight into the animation workflow for video games. Well, at least my animation workflow for video games. So, before we hop into Maya, what we're going to do is we're going to open up Photoshop and start sketching out our main gestures for our main poses. Before I started sketching, I went and grabbed a stick and ran around outside for a bit with it, trying to figure out what to consider when running around with a sword, try to be honest to the motion. And since I'm not going to be using any video footage, it's really important to make sure that these couple drawings here have all of the information that I want my main pose to convey about the motion that's going on here. I want it to feel like this guy's accelerating, that he's really pushing off into his run. And I feel like this main pose here in red really conveys that. There's also a technical reason why I chose this as my main pose, but I'll get into that later. I do a couple quick drawings to figure out how I'm getting in and out of that pose. And pretty soon I'll be hopping over to Maya. I also did a couple other drawings on my desk during warm-up for this animation, and I think of the pose down in the lower left as also being a major pose. I glance at it every once in a while to sort of see what this animation should look like from the front. So first things first, I need to match my main pose in Maya. Getting your gesture right is really important in 3D. Otherwise, your animations will look very, very stiff. And it's an easy trap to fall into when working in 3D. So one of the reasons that I chose this pose is I know that in the game that this is going to be in, that there's going to be a running slash attack that comes straight from this running animation. Compared to a lot of animation in 2D and 3D, animating for games doesn't give you very much room for anticipation for your animations. It's just very hard to do without introducing a lot of input delay, which is the delay between a player pressing a button and the character on screen reacting to that button press. If you've ever played a game with a slow jump animation, you know what I'm talking about. So one of the things I try to do is make sure that I get whatever anticipation I can from my run pose, since I know it's going to be coming directly before this running slash. That's why I have this guy's back all twisted up. I'll actually be pushing it a little bit further later on, but I want to make sure that that you can kind of feel some of the energy built up in his twisting back, so that when he slashes out of it, it feels like you earned the motion with the anticipation that came before it. One of the things you may have seen me do, and that you can see down in the graph editor, is at the very beginning on frame 0 there is a bind pose, which is just a zeroed out T-pose that I can use as reference, as well as for a technical consideration. I've had issues in the past, especially with working in Unreal Engine 3, of not having a perfectly zeroed out bind pose, and so the animations come in with an extra amount of rotation information or an extra amount of translational information that I didn't really mean for the animation to have. So I'm always careful to leave frame 0 as a completely clean bind pose so that I never have to worry about losing a zeroed out form. It's also nice if you're going to have a file with more than one animation in it to have a T-pose zeroed out so you don't have to go through and manually zero out the rig every time you switch animations. For instance, if I was going to also do a walk and an idle, he's not necessarily going to be sharing a lot of the same pose information, so I'd like to start again from 0. I told you that there was also a technical reason why I chose the bind pose. Aside from the aesthetics of me liking the way the push-off pose really feels, a lot of people tend to work contact to contact, which is the pose where the character's heel first hits the ground to the with his right foot, and then the other pose being with the left foot. If you're blending into an animation that starts on the contact pose, and if you're blending from the foot already being on the ground, the first sort of half step that the players take as they blend from their idle pose or from an attack pose, where the foot is planted on the ground, to the first step of the run, if that first step is also on the ground, the foot will sort of slide across the ground to reach its first main pose. If its first pose is in the air, however, you can avoid that little hitch in the animation because the character will try to lift their foot up to the push-off pose instead, which I think looks a lot better, and so I try to do it in my animations. Now I'm going back and making sure that the pelvis shifts its weight appropriately. I'm going in and smoothing my graphs, making sure that the feet contact the ground and feel solid, that the character moves up and down convincingly, trying to get some of that weight in there that I want. And it's easy to lose track of your character's weight in 3D, just because there is no weight. It's all floating in space anyway, and nothing actually has any physical limitations at all. But it's important to really try to get your arc smooth and try to get the weight of your character expressed in these main poses. Here I am trying to bring a little bit of life into that hand. I do a bit of an animation where he clenches and unclenches his hand as he runs, but the run animation is going to go too fast for me to end up using it in the final animation, though I do keep a slightly clenched pose in the final run. And here we are with the final animation. Just a little bit more work and it'll be ready for import into a game. Here it is at half speed so you can get a good look at it. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's given you a bit of perspective on the workflow for animation for games, and may help you with your own animation. My name is Ryan Katz, and check back here for more animation tutorials, and also feel free to check out my website and my blog. Thanks.